Hello and welcome to another Daily Muppet. In today's video, I want to talk about, of course, the Arsenal match a little bit more. Not go too long on it because there's not that much to analyze beyond the obvious of what happened in that game. But I want to talk about that. I want to talk about as well the January window. Last week, I provided a few updates on a live and in video, and I wanted to summarize and again that a little bit more as to what United are planning and why I believe that they're kind of potentially looking past Kolo Muani. And there's some news today, obviously, from Fabrizio Romano as well that could potentially align with this too in terms of what United would ideally like to do. So that'll be very interesting. So we'll talk about that and one of the names that he brought up that we can add to our list, I think, pretty solidly. Talk about the sales, talk about Rashford, Garnacho, things like that, and get right into it. So let's start with Arsenal. Obviously was an incredible game. We'll be, by the way, on podcast with Phil. We'll be back. I don't want to step over and say something. He's just dealing with some things he's got to deal with. So we will be back. We might do it tomorrow or Wednesday or whatever, but we will be back with it soon. It's not like we're not going to be doing them anymore. It's just, there's some life things, get in the way of scheduling and all that. And Phil lives out in LA too and all that too. So it's a kind of a crazy time there. So for the Arsenal game, obviously it's a massive win. It's just a massive win. And when you look at it now, United have, in essence, had really good results against some really big teams, against some of the best teams. I mean, they've played now 2 games subsequently, right? We've played Liverpool and Arsenal now in a row, 2 weeks back to back. 1-1, should have won the other. And and that's just an incredible testament, both away, both at difficult locations, places where we haven't won in a long time, and where we've been especially poor away against any big teams for years now. And it's all turned around. And there's a lot of special things to note, on this when we talk about this game, because obviously statistically, analyzing the game is kind of pointless because of the red card in a large respect. The first half was, if you look at the stats in the first half, though, what was rather interesting was they had 0 shots on target in the first half against us. No big chances, 0 shots on target from where I could see it anyway. Anyway, look, you get 4 shots to 3. They had to make 2 saves. We had to make 0. We gave them virtually nothing. Look at the free kicks, though. The referee was giving them absolutely everything, even in the first half. 12 free kicks to 3. I mean, unbelievable. You take the second half, you take the red card, bam, they're getting chance after chance, lots and lots of chances. Not like great chances, mind you, but they're getting them, okay? I thought defensively we were exceptional, exceptional at continuing to get, to shut down anything of importance. And when we look at extra time, we had the better chances. We had the only big chance in extra time, even down to 10 men. And that was incredibly impressive. You go through all of them, you're going to see, that overall, we tackled more, we were combative. They got everything from the ref. 6 yellows, 1 red compared to 2, 24 free kicks to 10, 25 fouls to 10, 12 corners to 2. I mean, we dealt with set pieces so well in comparison to what we've seen in the past. Just absolutely fantastic stuff overall, really just important to highlight the change, because I thought that in the first half we played good defensively once again, and we've kind of shifted towards, again, the way that I thought we would, which is to keep a compact middle. Look at this. You can see this. And obviously, with the subs on, but look at this compact middle. We were so focused on compact in the middle. Now, again, one of the reasons this changes, because you have part of this is the switching of sides, that these wing backs aren't so wide. But even if you eliminate from the picture, this is the hallmark of an Emirates team defensively. So compact in the center of the pitch that you cannot attack. And that doesn't always mean up here. Sometimes you leave spaces up here, but when you get into United's half, you just block that middle off and do not give them anything. And I thought we've been doing that exceptionally well in recent times. better than ever. And as we've seen from 2 weeks of training, it's made a big difference. It's obviously the attacking possession principles that will need to improve there. But overall, the sofa score ratings are so funny when you look at this. But, Kabi Manu and Manuel Ugarte, mixing the two of them together, did really well. You can see how little we had of the ball, but did really well just being combative all game. I mean, Ugarte was, just fighting all game, fighting and fighting and fighting, and that's what matters. Just a really great performance from all of them. Harry Maguire was insane. He was, back to the absolute best that he always is. If you look at it, 4 out of 4 aerial duels, 4 out of 3, 3 out of 4 ground duels, just 1 out of 1 on dribbles. Clearing, passing, 11 clearances, 5 block shots, 1 interceptions, multiple tackles. The penalty was absolutely bullshit too, as we all know. De Ligt also exceptional. After making some mistakes against Liverpool, he's back to his best. And it's not a game you can really analyze by stats. You just had to watch it to see it. But the biggest thing I think that was so impressive was, first of all, I thought that United started to take hold in the start of the second half when, they came out and scored that goal. I thought they were actually starting to be the better side overall. And I thought they were technically the better side in general in the first half. They did not have a lot of possession and control, but they were heavily limiting Arsenal and creating slightly better chances. And then in the second half, after going down a man to the red, and look, the refereeing was atrocious all game. The problem is the red was justified. The second yellow, I should say, was justified. It was a really, really reckless tackle for being on a yellow, missed the ball. It's a yellow. We can't even complain about that, but the rest, there's so much more that was completely ridiculous, including, of course, the penalty itself, which massive credit to Bayindir saving that penalty, made some big saves down the run, and of course in the penalty department, during the actual penalty kicks as well, he made a huge save there to help us win it. His kicking was bad. I mean, you can see this by the numbers: 12 out of 44, 39 long balls, 7 accurate. His kicking was not just bad; it was really bad. just a one kind of negative there. And so it's understandable United looking at still needing a keeper. Bayindir, very impressive shot stopping performance for me. Kicking was really, really, really poor. Really did not help us. That was a very, very concerning aspect that certainly caused some problems for us. But the most important thing, I think, the most impressive thing, was how the players battled every second of that game. They were battling. They were warriors. They fought. Everybody who came in was impressive. Ugarte and Manu were once again workhorses in the middle. Ugarte once again just a fighter the whole game, standing up for himself and teammates and all that, and really, really impressed with that. The subs were good pretty much to a T, every single one of them. Lenny Yoro, I want to make again special mention, when you look at the penalties, Bruno and Ahmad stepping up. Lenny Yoro taking the third one was big. Him in this situation, stepping up, not the most senior player in the slightest, stepping up to take a penalty, scoring it. And Joshua Zirkzee, with everything that has happened in the last bit of time, him stepping up in this moment, winning the game on a decisive penalty, was awesome. And not just that, because I do want to mention this. Like, if we want to talk, there was a lot of positives: the fight, the grit, the determination, the defensive, prowess there. All of that was really good. If we want to talk about, I think there were probably 2 or 3 negatives for me from the game overall. Number one was the striker play. It was horrendous. And I mean, probably Rasmus Højlund's worst game. It was just really, really bad. From start to finish for him, I don't think he won any duels. I mean, it says that, but he didn't win any duels. Arsenal were constantly setting traps where we'd have space to kick the ball into Højlund, and he sits there backing into Saliba and Gabriel, and they just run right by him and take the ball, because he continues to lack focus on the ball and is too focused on the man. You've got to be able to attack the ball while manhandling, not manhandle while trying to get the ball. There's a difference in terms of focus, and he's got to do a lot better there. Joshua Zirkzee, I think it's safe to say, outside of the penalty, we would not have won if he hadn't come on at the 81st minute. He provided us an outlet through regular time and into extra time, where I showed we actually had the only big chance of extra time, and it was because of him, and I think it was his shot as well. But he provided an outlet. He picked up the ball. You can see the things out there of him dribbling Saliba, doing all of that really, really well. And pick up the ball in the spaces, get out of pressure, just relieve United a little bit, push Arsenal back, delay them so that they could not continue to attack us while we were down to 10 men. He was exceptional in that way, in his ball control in crowded areas and the spaces and all that. And it's still where you sit there and you go, there's a player here. You know what I mean? There is a player here who has talent, who has capability. Hopefully this is a huge confidence boost, scoring in that penalty and doing what he did. The away fans were great, and their support of him and of the whole team, as they almost always are, and I think that was extremely helpful, also. So that was important. I thought that was really great to see, and it's you go back and forth. Do we need to? Should he start? Should Højlund start? And the truth is, neither of them have really established themselves as that guy, as a nailed-on person at this point in time. So that's the reason we can kind of go back and forth. But the other thing I would say that was good to see was Alejandro Garnacho playing off of the right. Obviously, he had a big contribution. He had the assist again on this goal. Very intelligent run, very intelligent play, very intelligent pass to Bruno with a great finish for the goal that we did score in open play. And it was good to see him doing that in that position. I still think he's better off of the right, giving us, as a substitute very often, giving us that on. But I think on the right, he tends to be more versatile in his attacks and his decisions. And I still prefer him, there. But impressive, from United, given the options that we've had. Collier coming on in front of Casemiro and Eriksen. Obviously, we can talk about what that means, in terms of where these players are at for the team. They're on their way out. They're obviously players not being relied on. Toby Collier, special mention there because he came on, and he's come on in these situations a few times where he's been coming on, where we're defending and it's about running and energy, and he's good at that. He's good at that. And in these situations, I prefer him to come on to Casemiro because he gives the energy, the running. Physically, he's up to the task. I think there's a footballer there. The question with him has been, does he have the possession principles, capabilities to do that, to play at the higher level in the games where, of course, most of the time where we want to have the ball in control? That's where there's been a lot of doubts on him. And as to whether he has a future at United or not, I would suspect it still leans towards a no in that respect, but because long term he's not going to be. I don't think he's there in terms of starting the game, but maybe he'll get more minutes now under Emirates to see if that's possible or not. To see if, at the very least, for the rest of the season, maybe if he does stay and doesn't go on loan in January, if he can rotate behind Ugarte as a 6 when we need to rotate, and just get a good progressor next to him. But do something, right, where at least we can utilize those traits, even if his in possession isn't that good yet. I think that's better than what we get from Casemiro, Eriksen, who just can't run, cannot keep up. And so, that is an interesting thing there. But, definitely I walk away from it feeling extremely positive about how we are as a team, where we're going, but also, we still have these few things to solve in terms of the front three. Bruno was better again. We know Ahmad's nailed on. The striker situation isn't settled. We still don't have a lot of options up front in the attack, and we will get to that in a minute. And then the wing backs is still an issue, and depth in the midfield is certainly an issue too. But otherwise, just extremely proud of the team putting forward to do what they did. So now I want to talk about Rashford and Garnacho. Okay, there's been a lot of stories about the both of them at this point in time. Marcus Rashford, there's still a big discussion with him about where he's going to go, what he's going to do, what's happening next. Sorry, that's funny. And he's in a situation where obviously he's not being included in the squads. As I've said many times, I don't think he'll be back into this team this year. I believe very strongly he's going to leave in this window, and they're exploring all the options. Milan now are interested, of course, in Kyle Walker, but it seems to be 50-50 at this point whether they do Rashford or Walker, and I think it's based on whether Rashford's decision on this. Obviously, Barcelona are still interested as well as other clubs in Italy, so we'll see where that goes. But that is a very likely, and United are kind of waiting for that, so we'll talk about that in a minute. Now, there's been a lot of talk on Rashford and Garnacho leaving, and a lot of talk of Napoli and things like that. I can say that at this point, I don't believe there's concrete substance to some full bid from Napoli for Garnacho or anything like that. I'm not saying they're not interested. I don't really know, but it's not at the point where they're making £40 million bids for him today. It's definitely a lot less likely that Alejandro Garnacho is going to leave in January at this point in time. And Garnacho's future is down to really two things. It's him. United are not actively looking to sell him. It's him if he wants to, if he's accepting of where he's at in terms of his role as mostly a sub behind Ahmad, behind Bruno, and going to be competing in these positions, and earning and playing well in his role and getting into that. And I think he's done well the last couple of games to do so. I think coming off Twitter and things like that is also a positive, a big positive to me. I think it's a huge positive. I think the less time that players can spend on Twitter, the better. I think it's very boomer of me, but I just think the social media usage is just damaging, very damaging for a lot of them. But regardless, United aren't looking to actively sell him right now. Again, as I said before, he's a player where they would consider it, where they want to evaluate by summer, but they would need a significant bid to come in. But he'd also have to want to leave. Right now, they're not trying to sell him too. If Napoli pop up and bid 60 million, would they sell him? Probably, if he wanted that move. But that's really up to him. And I think his future is really in his hands here. If he wants to do the role, continue to grow, and improve at United in the position that he's in, then he will have that opportunity, and that he's been given the opportunity by Emirates. So obviously that is the case. So it's in his hands. It really is. But United are not sitting here actively looking to get rid of him right now. And it's not nearly as solid of bids coming in from Napoli for him yet at this point in time. Even if there may be some interest or dialogue there, it's not at that stage or that point or anything. And moving on to sales and buys. So, last week what I was saying is that, what I was hearing that I can still maintain is that United are still trying to figure out how much they can bring in. What they can bring in terms of finances in order to decide what to do next in terms of a buy, right? Because, as I said before, one of the things they don't want to do is just waste money on loans that don't have a future for the club. So you saw there was all the talk of Kolo Muani, then it kind of quieted. Well, one of the reasons they haven't pushed for it really heavily is that it may end up being a waste of money. Even if we get him and it's decent, if there's not a way to buy him afterwards, then it's a waste of money. Then we've just pissed 6-month loan down the drain, gotten, nowhere towards, progressing it, for the future. And then there's, in addition to that, obviously there's the competition and things like that too. So, but really then it also adds up to what would they want? And as I was saying last week, they want to ideally get do something where it's permanent. It's something that is going to potentially be something they want for the long term, and that they may be looking at how much can we bring in to see if we can make a more permanent move, something we want to do that is more ideal in the long term, that is something that actually is contributing to the full rebuild that is needed to be happening here, and that's what they want. Ideally, that has been the case for the whole time. I said it 2 months ago that they would like to bring in not just loans but people they could get permanently. And that's still what they're looking at in an ideal world, is can they get business done that is going to contribute to the full rebuild? There's so much that we need, right? When we went through the squad breakdown, all of that, we need as a priority a forward and a wing back really badly. We need that now, frankly. I don't know if we'll get both now, but I think they'll be able to do something, and we'll talk about a specific name that Fabrizio brought up in a second. But this has been my inclination that they would not necessarily want to, from discussions I've had, that they would not necessarily want to do something temporary, but see if they can get enough money to do something permanent. I don't know what exactly, because it's going to depend on the deals available and what's possible, but can they do something permanent? One of the things I like that they're doing, Diego Leon is in Manchester today getting his stuff done, is it seems like their strategy is like, can we buy some young athletic players who can come in and be the backups to round out the squad? So when we're making subs, it's Diego Leon at left back. It's, maybe Kone by the end of the season at that sixth position, right? That it's those types of moves instead of, buying older players for those backup positions. So if you're in a state right now where you cannot spend a lot of money, you can make those kind of moves to at least start rounding the team out. And I think that's the way, because you want to buy starters for sure. You definitely need to buy starters. But for your backups, in an ideal world, you have young up-and-coming players that could end up being starters, not older players on the decline. And then they either make it or you sell and replace them. But you start working that way when you're doing a full rebuild. You want good starters and you want young players who can be up and coming to replace them. That's how you keep a squad refreshed. That's how you build it for the long haul. That's how you keep rejuvenating without having to make 10 transfers and do full knockdown rebuilds every 2 to 3 years. That's what we need. That's what we've lacked for so long. That we've gotten lucky on a few players coming through the academy doing it, but we've not been making those smart purchases of young players getting through. So we see that with Diego Leon, a young athlete who will likely be a backup, but will come in and could push for the starting spot. Kone, we see that. And so if we cannot afford the starters, like if we can't get our Nuno Mendes, our Kirkes, if we can't get our big forward like an Osimhen or a Samu, Agawa, these types of things right now, then, okay, can we get those backups? Because when you look at those positions of young, high potential players, because when you look at those positions, we got two strikers that we don't know. We've got Bruno, who's technically getting older, and we've got Ahmad. Garnacho in a somewhat of a mixed zone, though it's better now. It's improving. We need forwards. We need one, and then probably to get a big striker in summer. So the name that Fabrizio's brought forward today was Nene Dorgeles. He's from Mali. African-born left winger, plays for Red Bull Salzburg, and he, who was heavily involved in the signing of him to Red Bull Salzburg. Well, Christopher Vivell. He came from the same club that we signed Manu Kone from. Vivell's been very involved in that. Obviously, has his fingers all over this, but these are the types of moves we should be making. These are the types of moves that make a lot of sense to me, and I definitely think that there's serious weight to this. That we've added him to our list of options for January summer, that we're being monitored, that we've taken initial talks, being monitored by the club's initial talks to be informed on the price package took place. So we've made these discussions. So now we have to figure out, is it a value that we can afford now? Or can we raise enough money to do it in January to decide if we're going to do it now, right? That's going to be the consideration at this point in time. And that tells you, for January or summer. So it means if we could do it now, we'd like to do it. That would be a good one for us to get in. And it would get another forward option in there who can rotate into that front three, who can play, who can score goals. Just some people that I've done podcasts with this guy before, Art of the Sudden, but, left 10, amazing athlete, good step count means he stays busy. He moves a lot on the pitch, good ball striking, development type of player, but contributing. I mean, he's got 14 appearances in the Austrian Bundesliga, 4 goals, 5 assists, obviously a well-rounded creative player, which is what Amorim tends to like from those wingers. He's playing in the Champions League. You know what I mean? Like he's not like some unknown, unproven player. He scored 2 goals in the qualifier. 9 goal contributions in 977 minutes in the Austrian Bundesliga for Salzburg. This is a good rate of return here. He's played on both sides regularly. Look at that, which is really interesting. Stats don't. Oh, I see, because one's a cup game. Fair enough. So 6 goals, 6 assists. More assists from the left, but It's interesting. He's played across the front three there, so a player who's very athletic, who's fast. When you look into him, fast, athletic, good with both feet, can play on both sides, provides that flexibility in the front. Probably then means that he can play in one of these narrow, more narrow 10 positions, 10/forward positions, and would be a really good fit there. So if you bring him in, then you start to have, okay, you've got him, Garnacho, it's kind of backups. You've got Ahmad and Bruno, and then you can solve your striker situation come summer, where maybe if one of them don't work out, fine, you let go. Very likely, maybe you move one on and go sign a big striker. Then you've got a top striker, a young striker in Rashford and Garnacho. You've got Ahmad and you've got Garnacho, and you've got Bruno, and you've got this guy coming in, Nene. So it makes a lot of sense to do a move like this if you can't do your big move now, to get another option, who could develop into that role and help you round it out, because we need two forward by summer. So this one makes a lot of sense to me, and is very interesting. And again, it adds up with the idea that, hey, we'd like to maybe do something permanent, right? Get somebody in who's going to be, if we can, that's everything that I kept hearing was that ideally that they would do something where they can get somebody who's going to improve. You know what I'm saying? Like, get somebody who's going to actually step up, and something that they could sign that's going to be a part of the rebuild, not a 6-month loan and you never see them again. You know what I mean? And it's just money down the drain. We need all the money we have to contribute to what we want to do. So this is a really, really, really intriguing one with it, because if you take this, if we make a move for him here, good cost, probably, I'm sure it's not going to be that expensive. If we can afford it, if we can loan Rashford, if we can make this deal, we get to see what he does for the season, and and start to develop there. But that means we've got that backup left back sort of, we've got that backup front line sort of, but of young high potential players who could push for that starter role. That narrows down what we've got to do in summer in terms of expense, where yes, we need that big striker to sort out Højlund and Xerxes, and then potentially sign a big striker, where then we can get that full top tier left wing back, that Kirkez or Mendes, get another midfielder in. We got the young potential one in Kone potentially to come through by the end of the season to be in the first team, but maybe another one, right? And then another center back. And so it narrows down what we need. I like these types of signings, because a lot of times when we were looking at the lists of players, I was looking at a lot of the forwards and thinking, some of them are like, it's like too obvious. Like, there's the big ones that we want to make, but we need so many players. We can't just keep signing big players and hoping it works. We need some of these, and we need some of these to hit and to be good, right? And I trust them so far on what they're doing on the transfer side of things. But when you need like backups, because we need depth, I would love this instead of going and signing another expensive older player. I love that, right? I love the idea of these types of things. So everything on this points to, hopefully we could do a deal for him, and it would make a hell of a lot of sense, and it would fully align with everything that we've heard on wanting to make more permanent deals if we're going to spend any money, players who will contribute to this rebuild. If we can do that, then that's great, because then again, it reduces the scope for summer, where we can just sign our starters. Our left wing back, we know we have top targets there. Our forward striker position, potentially, we know we've got major targets there. And then midfield and center back. And it reduces the job come summer if we can make good signings like this at a good price, where we're not taking big risks on 40, 50 million for players that could end up being backups, right? That we cannot do, or random loans. So I hope that this is something that can get done, or something similar to this. And it's a name we'll have to follow, and if it progresses further, we'll look into it a little bit more. But obviously, I think it's a solid link. Fabrizio was also first on Manu Kone, I believe, on an exclusive on that one, and you can see there's kind of a connection there. So that's really intriguing that this might be something we actually follow through on. It's really good to see us doing these types of deals, right? We've signed Diego Leon from South America, Kone from Africa. Like, we're making these deals finally. And they will pay dividends in the years to come, where by next season we could have 3 players in our depth, as straight off the bench, who we signed for very little money, that improved the team, and it makes the job of rebuilding the squad a lot smaller. So I'm very hopeful that this is something can get done, and again aligns with what they would hope to do, which is to which is to improve the squad, not just make loans. Um, not just make loans. So I hope to do that. Um, I hope to do that. Um, so moving on to more. So what else is there? Well, obviously there's the rest of the clear out. Ericsson will go as soon as possible. If we can move him in January, we would. Anthony could potentially go on loan to Real Betis. So he was open to that in Spain. Asani Dial went on loan, so we'll have to see if they follow through on that now. But they will move him on as soon as possible if they can, right? Rashford, we know the situation. Garnacho, they're not actively looking to sell at this time. Kabi Mainu, as I said before, the most likely outcome is a contract extension by the season's end on reasonable wages. They got Ahmad's done, and the discussions will continue on that. It is of vital importance to everybody that he stays, and everybody's giving, is wanting him to stay. Diego Leon is done now. He'll rejoin in summer. He will get a run through preseason and then likely will be in the first team. That is the plan anyway, that he can be the first team backup left back. In summer and between now and summer, they'll look to move on Malacia and Shaw, ideally if they can. It's unlikely Shaw goes anywhere now because of injury, but in summer they will probably look to that and sign that top left back. And Malacia, they'll be looking for options for him between now and later. So that's all good there. In terms of center backs, Lenny Yoro obviously settled. De Ligt settled. Harry Maguire got that option, but they will likely open up discussions and to extend it on a further basis on a lower wages. That is something they want to do. Right now, he's probably our first choice center back overall, and I could see that staying so for the next 2 or 3 years, quite honestly. He keeps this up at center, in the center position. Gives us a lot more flexibility, but we still probably need that one more athletic left-sided center back. There's been some talk of Gonzalo Inacio. I don't think it's necessarily a priority for January. I've continued to not hear that they're likely to make a signing at center back in January, but it is... I've got my own concerns with Inacio, but there's no doubt the club like him, have been following him. We played for Amram. He's a good player who fits the profile, very similar to Lisandro Martinez, but taller. But he still also doesn't necessarily have the athleticism. That being said, post-injury, Lisandro's definitely struggled a little bit, even more with pace. He looks slower than he was before. Hopefully he can get back to his best. Inacio's probably closer to before injury Lisandro, so maybe it's good. Maybe it's enough. I don't know. I have my own concerns, but I'm not going to say that means the club won't sign him. Definitely, he's one we'll just have to keep an eye on as we get closer to summer if they decide to move for him, because he certainly fits the profile really well, characteristic-wise, of a left-sided center back. It's just whether he's athletic enough for that position in terms of their evaluation or not. And then backup keepers is still a thing. In terms of Casemiro, as I said before, I don't think there was much substance to that Saudi stuff. I've heard there's some tentative inquiries from the MLS, which I've said before. The Saudi stuff is overblown. The spokesperson for Al Nassr came out and said it's not true, that they're not pushing for him right now. It's a kind of an odd story. Phil and I talked about Ronaldo pushing for Casemiro to join him over there like a long time ago. That's old. And I don't believe that they've been that interested in him for a while now. And as I said, there's no offers being presented from Saudi for him right now. So a lot of that was overblown, and we'll have to see. But obviously they're looking to sell him. They're actively looking to move him on. And yeah, at this point in time, there's still 17, 18 days left in a window. Look to see how many players we can move out. If all we did was get this young forward in, I'd be pretty happy with that, because it would mean we're making progress towards the full rebuild. Obviously, it would still leave us a little bit short. Obviously, I'm saying with outs and stuff too, but it would leave us a little bit short. But, for the long term, I'm okay. I just want us to make smart moves, and this is the type of move that is smart. It's not wasting money. It's not throwing it down the drain. So hopefully we can, I would be really encouraged if we get a deal like this done. And we've been sitting there thinking, what are these forwards we could get? It's solid on the strikers. In terms of the forwards, there's young players. This kind of falls into the vein of like the Nippon or the Chris Rigg type of signing. So, if they're going with, if those signings maybe predate some of the people who are there, like, not predate, but if the people involved, Vivell, Wilcox and such, have looked at all those and said, okay, we prefer, maybe those aren't convincing to us, we want someone different, and this type of signing is better, then so be it. And He's a little bit older, a little bit more established than like Nippon Rig, those guys, right? He's got more experience playing in the Champions League. So maybe that's the reason, that a player like this would be still young, still high potential, still a good deal, but potentially more ready to play right away, which we need, than some of the other younger options we've looked at for these forward kind of 10 positions. Less risky there, where we may need contributions right off the bat. So that could be a factor in that. So we'll see what happens over the next few days. Keep in the loop on, especially the outs and the sales, when Rashford's team kind of decide where they want to go. If they can bring a good offer to United there, that will help. If anybody from Casemiro, Anthony, Eriksson as main potential departures also can bring anything to the table, that would help. And then if a deal for this Dorgeles kid becomes viable, then that would be really good. I'd be really happy with that. And potentially, type of player who could cover at left wing back, even, given we've seen that with wingers. So that could help solve multiple problems in there too. Giving you, Ahmad on the right, this kid on the left potentially, Garnacho in one of those positions too. It could help solve some of those problems, or at least lessen, if we cannot get our top targets for a left wing back in this window, which is a distinct possibility, it could even help contribute and lessen the burden there, giving us more options up front so we can use wingers at the back more. So we'll have to see. Anyway, I'm a fan of the concept. Okay, that's what I have for today's video. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on, and I will see you in the next one.